Right, good evening everybody and welcome to this meeting of the Local Plan Subcommittee. Very nice to be here and see people. Just we'll start with apologies. I've had four. Councillor Butland, who is on a council related meeting elsewhere, Councillor Mrs Dervish and Councillor Coleridge, who for work reasons are unable to be here, and Councillor Hume has also sent apologies. Got everybody else present. Point 2, declarations of interest. Anybody have any disclosable pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest relating to items on the agenda, having regard to the code of conduct for members and having taken advice where necessary? Councillor Mrs Scattergood.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to declare an NPI in item 6 as I am the ward member for Bewers Hamlet.
Thank you.
I'll remain and vote.
Thank you, that's fine. Who else? Councillor Thorogood.
Yes, I'd like to declare that I'm a county councillor for Braintree Eastern and also chairman of cause Kelvin Against Urban Sprawl. I have taken advice and it's a non-pecuniary MPI.
Fine, good. Thank you very much. Nobody else? Yes, Councillor Abbott.
Yes, thank you. Item 5, MPI. As a district councillor, I've taken part in various stages of the consultation on the local plan, and I'm a member of Rivenhall Parish Council, which has also made representations during the local plan process.
Okay, fine. Alison, do you think I should declare interest because of the local plan? Portfolio holder.
You can do it.
Well, I will declare an MPI just for clarity in item 5, the local plan, as the portfolio holder for planning. I've obviously been involved in various stages of section 2 as we've gone along, but I'll declare an MPI on that. Right, okay. Minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 9th of September, they have been circulated. They were very brief. It was a very short meeting, which we held virtually because there were no decisions to be made. It was just for an update on the local plan. If everybody's happy with that, could I have somebody move and second, please? Yes, Councillor Wrench. Second, Councillor Scattergood. Thank you. Right, okay. Item 4, public question time. Mrs Eileen Penn from the Halstead 21st Century Group was intending to be here to speak this evening but is unable to be here because of work commitments. She has submitted her statement, which was circulated to everybody a bit earlier today, so I hope everybody's had a chance to read that. She hasn't requested the statement be read out, so I will take it that everybody's had a look at that. Emma, can I just ask you, do you have anything, I mean this meeting is being webcast, do you have anything particular to comment on with regard to that statement?
Thank you. I think it is supporting one of the proposed modifications, so I think we welcome that support and ask her and all of the residents of the district if they have comments, either support or in objection to those main modifications, that they put them forward in the consultation that we're about to discuss.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'd like to thank Mrs Penn for taking the trouble to submit her statement. And yes, just repeat what Emma has said, which is that we would really like all residents to take part in the consultation and submit comments. And if she would like to submit those comments on behalf of the Halstead Group, I think that would be very welcome. So I'll move on to item 5, Braintree District Draft Local Plan Section 2, main modifications. I'm going to ask Emma to present this. It's important that we go through this process this evening because hopefully then that can lead on to the start of the 6-week public consultation. I appreciate there was a lot of paperwork and some of it only came around within the last day or two, so there's been quite a lot for members to look at, and I also appreciate that everybody may not have had the chance to read every single line of it, but hopefully we've got the gist. And Emma, I'll pass over to you for presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So, following the conclusion of the Local Plan Section 2 hearing sessions in the summer, I'm now very pleased to present to you a report on the next steps of the process. So, as part of the examination process, the Council has made a request to the inspectors, Mr Bridgewater and Miss Jordan, to suggest changes to the Local Plan Section 2 to make the plan sound. The Council produced a series of suggested changes to the plan prior to the oral hearing session starting, which were published on our website. These were largely changes as a result of the passage of time since the plan had been submitted, and suggested changes that the Council had made following discussions with key stakeholders such as Essex County Council or Sport England, and had been agreed between the parties through published statements of common ground. These were discussed as part of the hearing sessions alongside further changes which were proposed by either one of the planning inspectors examining the plan, or brought up by the participants in the hearing sessions, or mentioned through the submitted hearing statements. An updated and revised schedule of proposed main modifications has therefore been produced and is attached as Appendix 1 to your committee report. As set out in the report, your committee report in paragraph 3.5, at this stage, changes cannot be made just to adjust the Council's preferences, for example, but must be made for reasons of soundness. So I think that all members have had the opportunity to go through that list of main modifications. You'll be pleased to know that I don't intend to go through all of the changes in detail tonight, but I have picked out a couple of key ones just to go through in more detail, and I've got them on the screen. So first of all, in terms of the strategic sites, those are policies LPP 18 to LPP 23 in the local plan, and you will see that in modifications 26 to 31, each has got changes within them, and particularly updated text around the community facilities, such as the health and schools and open space text, which have all been agreed with the various stakeholders. Main modification 30 for LPP 22 on fairing includes these changes, but also includes updated wording on highways, access and heritage, and these were discussed in detail at the examination sessions, including with the Parish Council. So what you'll see on the screen is an example of the policy text now with the additions and deletions within it. So the strike-throughs are obviously deletions, and the red text is the new additions. So those are the additions to and deletions to that policy. So the second policy I wanted to concentrate on is LPP 52, and apologies for the quite small text on the screen there. This is the health impact assessment policy. So you'll remember that in the proposed policy within the submission plan, it included a restriction for new fast food and takeaways within 400 metres of schools. However, the inspector did not consider that this was appropriate and in line with national policy. We have proposed revisions to the policy, therefore, which maintains the requirement for health impact assessments, HIAs, to be submitted for all residential developments over 50 and for larger commercial developments. And the text says that any significant adverse health impacts which are identified as part of that health impact assessment means that the planning permission will be refused unless infrastructure or funding to address those impacts are met. This policy also provides more detail in that first paragraph. You'll see directing developers to guidance on how they should produce a health impact assessment, and we're directing them to the Essex-wide guidance that's produced as part of the Essex Design Guide. So moving on now to LPP 55, this is layout and design of development. So this is our main design policy in the local plan, and as such, a very important and well-used policy. There are a number of minor wording changes proposed to some of the bullet points, but I wanted to particularly draw your attention to the addition in paragraph 9, which you can see on your screen, regarding biodiversity net gain, and also that design and layout should be incorporating tree and hedge planting. 2 points to the changes on point 11, which is reflecting the position around developments which result in severe impact on the highway network will be refused. And also the additional bullet point 19, which talks about ensuring that development can demonstrate adequate foul water treatment and disposal. Briefly moving on to LPP 62, this was a policy on enabling development, and this policy has been proposed to be deleted in its entirety as Historic England felt it was an unnecessary repeat of national policy, which the inspector has agreed with. Moving on then to policies LPP 75, which was energy efficiency, and LPP 77, renewable energy within new developments. These policies have been subject to very detailed discussions through the hearing and subsequently with the planning inspector. I think to the great disappointment of all the officers involved in the plan, the inspectors have removed the requirement for renewable energy provision on all new developments, and instead we have reached a compromise position in line with the requirements set out within a written ministerial statement, which means that we can ask for a 19% improvement in energy performance over the requirements of the 2013 building regs. There's a couple of caveats in there. We expect that building regs will continue to move forward with the Future Homes Standard, and so that betterment should be overtaken by building regs, certainly within the next few years. But we've also been able to add in that commercial buildings in excess of 500 square metres must receive the BREEAM Very Good or Above standard, which we're pleased with. And also we've been able to add in the optional additional requirement for water efficiency of 110 litres per person per day. And that's just the policy wording that has been deleted, unfortunately. Finally, this was the very substantial policy LPP 78, flood risk and surface water drainage. The policy has been, as you can see, it was a very long policy, and it has been redesigned in order to provide more clarity. The substance of the policy hasn't particularly changed, but you can see there the layout has moved about slightly, and the text has just been clarified to ensure it's clear how the council will manage flood risk. And then the final thing that I just wanted to highlight, and I haven't got it on the screen, is, of course, that as part of the Appendix 1 to the local plan has a detailed housing trajectory, which sets out how the local plan will deliver the housing across the plan period. The previous appendix was, of course, related to the position as of March 2017, and of course that position has completely changed now. And so the whole new appendix has been added to deliver the position as of March 2021, and that's the position, the roll forward position, which has been on our website since the end of May this year. So as well as those main modifications, which are primarily to the policies in the plan, you'll also see in Appendix 1 a list of minor or other modifications. These are generally changes to the supporting text, which carry forward some of the main modifications, or update the text for clarity or to correct any errors. These are within the gift of the local authority to change and amend, and so do not need to be subject to consultation or approval by the inspectors, although we have discussed them with the planning inspectors. Turning now to the supporting documents to go alongside the proposed main modifications. As you'll be aware, a sustainability appraisal, or SA as I'll refer to it through the remainder of this presentation, is a requirement to be produced alongside the local plan to consider the environmental effects of the plan, and it's an iterative process updated at each stage alongside the local plan. So the documents that you have before you now are the updated final report, which is the overall assessment, and you've got the conclusions there on pages 79 to 81. We have an updated appendix of the detailed site assessments on newly considered sites, which include those sites that were added to the plan following the granting of planning permission. And one of the additional documents was also a non-technical summary. This doesn't contain any new information, but it provides, as I say, a non-technical summary of the work. So please accept my apologies for the late circulation of these updated docs. The documents that you had originally were updated to correct some feedback errors that the officers had provided to the consultants and have reflected the updated wording of the main modifications. Additional text was added to the the cumulative impacts section and the conclusions in chapters 6 and 7. And as I've said, there was the addition of some additional sites within the appendix. The conclusions of the essay are on pages 79 to 81 of your document. And as you can see, they set out that overall the plan provides significant positivity for sustainability appraisal objectives on housing, service centre viability, accessibility, education and skills, mixed impacts on community safety, health, economy, sustainable travel, historic environment, climate change and landscape and townscapes, and there are generally negative effects on soil, biodiversity and air quality. These are generally because of the growth of the plan. Those haven't particularly changed between the main modifications and the existing plan, and there are tables within the document which show comparisons between the plan as submitted and the plan as modified. I would also draw members' attention in particular to the assessment of the spatial strategy, which is from page 42 of the main document, where of course the spatial strategy options that have been assessed have removed the garden communities following the section 1 examination. But we've also added in a new spatial option to consider, option F, which relates to non-garden community sites across that broad A120 corridor. Members will also see from the tables in the document from pages 50, the tables are for each policy and its overall effects are noted. And as I've said, that compares that to the 2017 version and now. And Chapter 6 provides details of the overall impact, taking all that into account against our SA objectives. So this is the final draft of the document, subject to final comments from yourselves tonight and from council officers. Once those have been completed, the SA also needs to be subject to that public consultation period alongside the main modifications. The final document you have before you tonight is an update to the Habitats Regulation Assessment, or HRA. This considers the impact of growth on the local plan on designated sites of ecological importance and takes into account the work done since the original HRA was completed, which includes extensive work and new policies within the Section 1 plan, the Recreational Avoidance and Mitigation Strategy and SPD, which we've adopted, and the associated launch of the Essex Coast Bird Aware Policy. It's also been updated to take into account new case law. So once again, with apologies for the late submission of the additional document, that was just minor updates to reflect the updated wording of the proposed main modifications in Appendix C of that document and to correct a couple of minor errors within the report. So as set out in paragraph 6.72, the main modifications have been reviewed and none of those modifications alter the previous conclusions of the HRA and the appropriate assessment that are set out in paragraph 7.4, providing that mitigation is implemented and that mitigation is the RAMS and open space provision, then there will be no adverse impact on any of those protected sites. So as I've said, the main modifications are required to be subject to a public consultation period. Further to the dates in the committee report that you have, we are looking to start the consultation slightly later. We are just waiting for the final sign-off from the inspectors. Therefore, that start date will not be before the 30th of November, which is next Tuesday. Given that the 6-week period would then run over the Christmas period, we are preparing to run it for a 7-week period. So that would end on either the 18th of January or later, depending on that exact start date. So this is a consultation on those main modifications and those SA and HRA updated documents only. It is not an opportunity to reopen or comment on other parts of the local plan, and this will be made really clear as part of our consultation process. The consultation will be advertised through the usual channels in terms of newspaper adverts, the council website, the council's social media channels. We'll be sending it to the People's Panel and the direct notification of all those people on the council's database and all those who have previously responded to the local plan consultations. This includes key stakeholders, parish councils and members. Communication will be both at the beginning of the process and throughout, but also we'll be renewing that communication in the new year, so with further adverts in the newspapers and further pushes on social media and direct communication. Officers from the planning policy team will be available on the phone and via Microsoft Teams and Zoom throughout the consultation period to discuss any modifications with stakeholders as they wish. All documents will be available online and in hard copy here at Causeway House in Braintree. Responses will be encouraged via the consultation portal, as this is more efficient and it avoids printing out too much paper. However, there will be a response form available to download on the website, either to fill in electronically or to print out and return to us. And we will be sending printed copies of the response form to local libraries. And they will be available on request from the planning team. If anyone has any issues with accessing information or response forms, then they should get in touch with the policy team, who will be able to address those issues. Once the consultation is completed, the comments will be sent in full to the planning inspectors, and it will be for them to consider the outcome of that modifications consultation. The council will also discuss any comments on the SAHRA, of course, with its consultants. So in terms of next steps, the inspectors will then consider those responses and make a decision as to the way forward on the local plan. This could include amending the modifications, reopening the hearing sessions for additional work, or issuing a final decision or final list of modifications. Members, thank you very much. The recommendations are in your report, and there are 3 around the consultation for the 3 documents. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Emma, very much for taking us through that. Right, I'll open it up for any questions or comments. Apart from Emma, we do have other officers here this evening. Gary, who I think in particular can answer any questions on the sustainability appraisal and the habitat regulations assessment. Alan is here as well. I'm not sure if he's going to talk on the local plan, but we have, anyway, enough officers here, I think, to cover everything. Right, Councillor Everard and then Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Perhaps this is an inappropriate question, but surface water and its effect on the sewage plants. We ask for balancing ponds and various things like that in our developments, but how does this affect the sewage plants?
Yes, Emma, thank you.
So as part of the local plan process, we undertook a number of evidence-based documents, including a water cycle study, and those documents were produced in consultation with specialist consultants, but also with all the water and sewage disposal companies within the district. So they have identified the capacity there, and those are also identified through the infrastructure delivery plan. The policies in the plan will help to deliver sites which will make the appropriate recommendations and on-site mitigation for this. And as part of our process, I believe we signed a statement of common ground with both Anglian Water and the Environment Agency on the proposed policies within the plan, subject to some minor changes that we agreed within those statements of common ground. They were content that the policies represented an appropriate basis upon which to plan for both water and water flooding and sewage disposal.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm not surprised to have got a question on that, because I know surface water flooding is a particular concern on existing developments in a number of places around the district. It is coming up quite frequently. So, yes, thank you for that question, Councillor Everard. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, it's good to get to this point, but I can't resist the temptation to point out that the first paragraph of the report says that this plan was submitted to the Inspectorate in October 2017, which is over 4 years ago, and I believe the initial scoping documents for this plan were a decade ago. So that's no criticism of any officers, but the administration's taken too long to get a local plan. I'd seek officers' views on how we approve the recommendation 2.1, given that, from what Emma said, we don't actually know what the date's going to be. So in governance terms, how do we as a committee sign that off when we don't actually know what the dates should be? And then I've got a series of questions on the main modifications and a couple on the text modifications. But before I go into those, I would say I like to be able to read all of the material on the local plan, and I simply was skipping through some of the longer documents that came in late. And I do appreciate, the pressure to get it done, but it is very difficult to do that when they come in that late. So I did, though, go through the main mods in detail. So firstly, main modification 8. It refers to, and I'm aware the Parish Council has raised this in respect of Cressing. It refers to Cressing and Tye Green in one sense as two communities and in another sense as one, saying that they're going to be allocated as Tier 2. Like many other parishes, you will have hamlets or villages, more than one within a parish, so Rivenhall End, Bradwell, Patterswick. Old Cressing Village, as we call it, couldn't possibly be Tier 2. It has got hardly any facilities at all. So I'm just wondering, is that supposed to cover both, or is it a generic comment about the parish as a whole? On main modification 27, it might be just the way I've read this, but there appeared to be a confusion or a duplication over primary, early years and childcare. Main modification 30, in one place it says that the Fearing site is 835 houses, but in MM25 it says 795. Is there a reason for that difference? Then there's 3 I spotted where the changes unfortunately affect the way the English runs in the sentence, and might be a proofread is needed before the whole thing's signed off. I won't go through them.
Which one was that?
I'll just say the numbers: 38,
Oh, right, okay.
63, and 90.
Okay.
And then picking up on, as Emma said, very disappointing. Main modification 86.
Yeah.
The loss of the specific requirement for renewable energy. I mean, I think it is just so ridiculous. So the government has said they want all new properties to have charging points. Fine. Well, then why aren't they requiring all new houses to have solar panels to help charge the vehicles? It's just bonkers. There's no other word for it. I'm not going to try and ask for it to go back in, because from what Emma said, there'd been quite a discussion with the inspectors. But so I think we can blame the government. The bullet point 19 on foul drainage, I can't remember which mod it referred to, but what that doesn't pick up, and I don't know if we can, is that we can say to a developer, you've got to make sure, and in association with Anglian Water or whatever the provider is, that the sewage treatment capacity can either cope now or will be able to cope before the development becomes occupied. But what we don't seem to be able to say is whether that puts any undue pressure on the pipework between A and B, between the source and the sewage treatment. And that's a problem we've got in several local villages now, where the pipes do not have the capacity. Is that something that we'd need to respond to the consultation on, or can we look at that before it goes out? And then final 2 points. I couldn't see on the documents on the civic page where the maps were that we're being asked to sign off tonight, and Emma didn't include them in her presentation. So, I was very interested to make sure that obviously the Rivenhall, Cressing and Silver End maps were correct.
Okay.
But we haven't been shown them tonight. And then very final question, MP20, why is the local wildlife site in Rivenhall being deleted? Sorry, there's so many questions.
That's all right. Okay. I appreciate the point about the volume of documents coming round and especially late. And yes, like you, I skimmed through and did my best to pick up points. I think, we need to get on and get this session done tonight so that we can move on to the public consultation. We don't want to delay this any longer, and obviously we've been in the hands of the inspectors as far as timing is concerned. It's their call, so this is coming in a little later than in the year than we would have liked from that point of view. And there's been, obviously a huge amount of work for officers to do. But I appreciate the point. I think we probably all would have struggled to read through absolutely everything. All right. Okay, Emma, shall I go over to you to make a start? Thank you.
Yes, although apologies, I don't think I've managed to pick all of them up, but I'll start with the ones that I have,
do it
and
as
then
we
I
go
might look
along.
I might look to others. So firstly, in terms of Cressing and Cressing Tye, Cressing is a Tier 3 village, and the proposal in the modification is to add Cressing Tye as a second tier village. That doesn't change the status of Cressing, which is in the list as a third tier village. In relation to the Fearing site, the difference there is what's delivered in the planned period. So within the main Fearing policy, the 835 is the overall number that will be delivered on the site. And within, I think it's within LPP 17, you then have a list of sites delivering within the planned period. So that lower figure represents the number that we think will be delivered in the planned period, with the remainder coming forward beyond the planned period. In terms of the foul drainage issue, so I think, as I said to Councillor Everard, we have statements of common ground with Anglian Water and the Environment Agency on this issue. They are satisfied, and they haven't pushed us particularly to put anything else into the plan. And we've sort of added in reference to foul drainage and disposal throughout the plan, as they had asked us to. So I don't think, given that we've had those discussions and we've had those statements of common ground, I'm not sure it's anything that we could push back on now with the inspector, but certainly you could raise it as part of a consultation response, and obviously those statutory providers will be asked to respond to the modifications consultation as well. In terms of the English, yes, you're right, doing them in the table does mean sometimes that the English doesn't follow through, so particularly when we've been then updating it into the text of the local plan itself, which I showed on the screen, and which we will issue as part of the public consultation, we are picking some of those tweaks and amendments up to the English. But we'll look again at those ones that you have highlighted. The map changes. So the maps aren't part of the local plan, in the sense that they are part of the local plan, but in terms of the examination process, they aren't part of the local plan, which is I know it's a weird thing to say that local plans are so spatial, but actually they have the inspector is examining the plan and the policies within it. So we are proposing to make changes to the site to those maps. They are mostly in regard to planning applications that have since been approved since 2017. So it will be incorporating those planning permissions into the sites, into the development boundaries. It's also removing allocations where they've been built, and updating. There were a couple of errors on the original plans around the flood risk areas, I think, and the conservation areas, which were factual areas that we've just amended. We do have that full list of those, though, and the full set of maps, and we can certainly circulate those to you to have a look at, and we can do that after this meeting. And then there was a question on a nature site, wasn't there?
Wildlife
site.
Was that MP20?
MP20, yeah, Rivenhall.
Which one?
Rivenhall, yes.
It looked to me like it was being removed, and we've not been consulted on that.
I will look to Alan or Gary if they have a response on that one.
While they're looking for that, Councillor, but I think you said something about early years and childcare. I can't remember if Emma covered
Yeah, it was
what it was.
MM27. I might be reading it wrong, but it appeared to have two changes, two new paragraphs which were very similar to one another.
So this is MM27 in relation to LPP 19.
Yeah. I think sometimes where there have been quite a lot of deletions, it's that easy to see.
You're right. We've changed the wording of there, and you're right, there's a double bullet point that goes across page 10 and 11. You're right, it's the same bullet, but it should be, I believe, the top bullet is the wording, and that second bullet point was a previous iteration which should have been deleted. So thank you for pointing that one out. Yeah.
Okay. How are we doing with the wildlife site? Have we got an answer on that one?
We're just quickly consulting a website on local wildlife sites.
The renewable energy, I was just going to say about the renewable energy point, that is, it is massively disappointing.
Same. I mean, sorry, just
yeah, that's okay.
We're almost there. I'm very grateful for all the answers. The other point was in governance terms. How do we agree to one when we don't know the date?
Well, Emma.
So the recommendation in the report doesn't actually include the date. It just says, I'm just finding the wording, not too many documents open. It just says to approve the document for consultation, to approve a 6-week public consultation on the main modifications.
Doesn't actually give a date.
No, I appreciate that, but I think the information in here did suggest dates, didn't it?
Yes, it did, yeah.
So we could just leave it open then? Okay.
Yeah, okay. Right.
Can I suggest that we take other questions and come
back
to
I think we will. Right, Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you very much. I haven't really got a question. It's just a comment based on what Councillor Abbott said, and I absolutely share his disappointment and dismay at the removal of policy 86. And regrettably, it once again shows the disconnect between the policy and the will of the government of the day and the decision-making outcomes of the PINs. And I think we could... I'm not going to rehearse go over old arguments again, but I think that in itself has had a profound impact on the length of the emerging local plan process. And I think we all look forward to a time, hopefully not too far in the future, where that obvious disconnect is no longer there. But just really, in addition, Madam Chairman, just to congratulate and thank officers once again for the work that they have done as hopefully this local plan process meets its logical conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Yes, we are inching towards the conclusion. Hopefully, we're on the last lap, I would say. And yeah, a bit frustrating that it's just dragged out a little bit towards the end here. But there we are. Right, anybody else got any questions? We're just waiting for an answer on the wildlife site. Yep, great, thank you, Alan. Thanks very much.
Yes, we're having difficulty locating the site. We've just consulted the Magic Map website, which is the sort of government website which shows all local wildlife sites. If we could just confirm the names of local wildlife sites, it would make it a little bit easy, but we may have to come back on that just to confirm its status. Local wildlife sites, they do get reviewed, and they also do get de-designated. Whether it's included in a map or not would be sort of a factual information, and yes, we would need to double check it. But as Emma said earlier, the maps aren't actually the policy; they're a representation of the policies in the local plan, so it would be a correction rather than anything else. But if we could get the actual name of the wildlife site, that would help.
Okay, Councillor Abbott.
Unfortunately, I don't have the full document in front of me, but it's the one near Rectory Lane, and I think it's associated with the old rectory. I mean, my main point is that we have not been consulted on this being removed, and I would have thought we should have been locally.
So certainly if we have removed it, it's because we've seen that it's been designated. So we haven't made any decisions to go through that process. That certainly wouldn't be something that we've done through this process. If we have proposed to delete it, it's because somebody has picked up that it's potentially being de-designated. But we'll check that position again and we'll get back to you. And if we've made an error, we'll obviously put it back in. And if we'll find the source of the reason for the deletion and we'll send that over to you.
Are you happy, Councillor Abbott, we leave it to officers to
I think we'll have
investigate
to
that
for now, yeah, we'll
and
have
let
to.
you know?
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
Well, we'll let
Best we
everybody
can
know.
do for now, thank
Yeah,
you.
what the outcome is. Great, thank you. Right, do I have any more questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Cunningham.
Madam Chairman, if there are no further comments or questions, would you be happy for me to move recommendations on page 5?
I would be delighted for you to do so.
Well, I happily move the 3 recommendations on page 5 of the report.
Right, do I have a seconder? Yes, I do in several places. Councillor Scattergood, Abbott and Bowers, that's good. Fine, members, so you have on page 5 3 recommendations which have been moved and seconded. Can I just have a show of hands, all those in favour, please? Thank you. And yes, Councillor Thorogood, yes, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, members, thank you. Good. We move on to item 6, which is Bures Hamlet and Bures St Mary Neighbourhood Area Application, which Alan is just going to present. Don't normally have these come to local plan subcommittee at this stage, but because it is sort of cross-boundary proposal, we need to just have a look at it this evening. So, Alan, I'll go over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Spree. So Bures and Bures St Mary have submitted a neighbourhood area application covering their parishes. It's a joint application between 2 parishes which straddle the border of Braintree District, Babel Mid Suffolk authorities areas, as well as Essex County Council and Suffolk County Council. So normally neighbourhood areas are automatically approved if they are submitted by a relevant local authority, which is a parish council, which also covers that parish council area. But as this application covers more than one area, it's not straightforward, meaning that we had to undertake some consultation. So there was a 6-week consultation on this proposal between 1st of September and 15th of October. We've set out the consultation responses in the table in this report. Of the comments received, none were objecting in principle to the designation of the application. Officers also considered the application and have no objection to it either. So once this neighbourhood area is agreed, then we have to publicise the decision on our website and in a manner normally a local newspaper, just to bring it to the attention of local people. And if Braintree Council do approve tonight, then we will have to obviously work quite closely with BABER to ensure that the neighbourhood plan proceeds quite smoothly. And we've arranged a meeting with officers of BABER in December to discuss the way forward with the neighbourhood plan, which covers the point raised by Essex County Council in the comments. It should be noted, BABER have also already approved this application for their part, which was on the 11th of November, and the recommendation is on page 13. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan. I think there were a couple of quite interesting comments and suggestions from residents in the report. Would anybody like, yes, Councillor Mrs Scattergood.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think this is a really ideal idea because the residents of Bures Hamlet and Bures St Mary consider themselves to be one village because they share so many things. So they share the railway station, school, doctors, surgery, the village hall, the playing fields. And the most unique thing about it is each parish council has a representative from the other parish on it. And I get the minutes of both parishes, and not only that, so does my counterpart. So we do work. We work as one. We look at it as one village, although they are separate. And I think as one overlooks the other, to have a joint plan will be the most successful idea. And I'm quite happy to move the recommendation on page 5, whatever it was. Thank you.
Page 13, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does that find a seconder anywhere? Councillor Cunningham, thank you. Would you like to make any comments?
No, just to agree with Councillor Mrs Scattergood, and it sounds like But hopefully that will cross-border plan will work extremely well, and we wish it well in it, as it goes through its process. Madam Chairman, I'm sorry, it's very remiss of me. I should have declared a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council, as they have been mentioned this evening. So apologies belatedly doing that. Thank you.
Okay, fine. I'll note that. Fine, thank you. Anybody else have any comments on this? I don't see any. I think it. I agree with Councillor Scattergood. It makes perfect sense to do this. So I wish them luck with progressing it. So that has been moved and seconded. Can I just have a show of hands that we agree with that? That's unanimous. Thank you very much, members. And that concludes business. We have no additional items. So I will close the meeting at about 6:17. And thank you very much indeed, members, and thank you, officers.